यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जनाय यमुनतीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम राम हरे 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 जय राधा माधव राधे जय पंचतत्व जय पंचतत्व जय नृसिंहदेव जय नृसिंहदेव जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र श्रीमद् ऐसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शील प्रभुपाद की नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की समवेद भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री गुरु गौरंग की गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 17, text 9. Shri Shuka Uvacha Bhagavanapi Tatshvatva Prahasyagadadrinripa Tushnim Baho Sadasi Sabhascha Tat Anuvartita. Shri Shuka Uvacha Bhagavanapi Tatshvatva Prahasyagadadrinripa Tushnim Bahubah Sadasi Sabhayaश्च तद् अनुव्रता. श्रीशुक उवाच भगवानपि तच्छ्रुत्वा प्रहस्यागाधीर्नृप तूष्णीं बभूव सदसि सभायाश्च अनुव्रता. भगवानपि तच्छ्रुत्वा Mataji, Shri Word meaning. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Sukadeva Goswami said, Bhagavan, Lord Shiva, Api, also, Tat, that, Shrutva, hearing, Prahasya, smiling, Agadadhi, whose intelligence is unfathomable, Ripa, O king, Tushnim, silent, Bhava, remained, Sadasi, in the assembly, Samaya, everyone assembled there, Cha, and Tad Anuvrata, followed Lord Shiva, remain silent. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Srila Sukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, after hearing Chitraketu's statement, Lord Shiva, the most powerful personality, whose knowledge is fathomless, simply smiled and remained silent, and all the members of the assembly followed the Lord by not saying anything. Purport. Chitraketu's purpose in criticizing Lord Shiva is somewhat mysterious and cannot be understood by a common man. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, however, has made the following observations. Lord Shiva, being the most exalted Vaishnava and one of the most powerful demigods, is able to do anything he desires. Although he was externally exhibiting the behavior of a common man and not following etiquette, such actions cannot diminish his exalted position. The difficulty is that the common man, seeing Lord Shiva's behavior, might follow his example. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Yad Yad Acharati Shreshtas Tat Tat Evetaro Janaha Sa Tat Pramanam Kurute Lokas Tad Anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world, all the world pursues. A common man might criticize Lord Shiva like Daksha, who suffered the consequences of his criticism. King Chitraketu desired that Lord Shiva cease this external behavior so that others might be saved from criticizing him and thus becoming offenders. If one thinks that Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the only perfect personality, whereas the demigods, even such demigods as of Lord Shiva, are inclined to improper social affairs, he is an offender. Considering all this, King Chitraketu was somewhat harsh in his behavior with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, who is always deep in knowledge, Agadadhi, as it is mentioned in the verse, could understand Chitraketu's purpose, and therefore he was not at all angry. Rather, he simply smiled and remained silent. The members of the assembly surrounding Lord Shiva could also understand Chitraketu's purpose. Consequently, following the behavior of Lord Shiva, they did not protest. Instead, following their master, they remained silent. If the members of the assembly thought that Chitraketu had blasphemed Lord Shiva, they would certainly have left at once, blocking their ears with their hands. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखामृतांश्च नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणी हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So welcome to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. I offer my humble respectful obeisance to all the Vaishnavas, seeking their blessings and prayers to speak on this verse. It's a very deep pastime which is being narrated, and we pray that we understand this and apply it in our life. So I'll, based on this verse, text 9, Shri Shukavacha, Bhagavan api tat shrutva प्रहस्य आघाधीर नृप तुष्णिम बहुवा सदसि सभायाश्च तद अनुव्रताः. So I will speak this class in four parts. Firstly, the discussion which is happening in the sixth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we will go into this verse. But before that, what exactly is the criticism Chitraketu uh, does to Shiva, and after he does the criticism, how Shiva is responding is mentioned in this verse. And after narrating that, we will go into Madhuri Kadamani, because Madhuri Kadamani analyzes, you know, whether actually Chitraketu committed an offense, whether it is real or apparent. And to understand that more clearly, Prabhupada, although is mentioning in the purport very clearly, but still, it is somewhat, Prabhupada says, mysterious, he says. So to unravel that mystery, we will give a parallel example in the contemporary, six Goswamis, especially Rupa Goswami, example of an offense, so-called offense, and try to understand that example of Rupa Goswami and relate to this incident of Chitraketu. And at last, we will go actually into the detail of the consequences of Vaishnava Aparadh. Because Vaishnava Aparadh also comes under Nama Aparadh. And how this Nama Aparadh, is a great stumbling block in attaining the goal of life, that is Krishna Prem, that also we will see from the Madhurit Katamani. So these are the four themes we will discuss. So we know that the sixth canto, the subject of Poshanam. is discussed. You know, Bhagavad Anugraha, how the Lord protects his devotees. Poshanam, the merciful protection of the Lord is being discussed. That subject matter, along with the whole chronology of the genealogy of Swayambhu Manu and Shaturupa, as it is being narrated in the sixth canto, uh, how Krishna protects his devotees. And the first classic example is of Ajamil. So in three chapters, Ajamil, although he was the most sinful of the sinful person, but he took the name of the Lord, indicating his son, Sanket. But yet, he was saved from the clutches of Yamdutas, and then he got purified, and then he went back to Godhead. But he was not an offender. There was no trace of offense in Ajamil's case. So Ajamil's case is a very unique case. So the Ajamil pastime is discussed, and then the genealogy of Daksha. Daksha initially in the fourth canto had criticized Shiva, and Daksha is again born. And that genealogy of Daksha is mentioned, and again he criticizes Narada, who will come up. And then in that context, you know, how the Lord protected even Indra, although he had committed a grievous sin of killing Vishwarupa. And after that, you know, Toshna did a yagya to kill Indra. Vritrasura is born, but Indra kills Vritrasura. And Vritrasura's pure devotion is only revealed in the Bhagavatam. Those four verses are called as the Bhava Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. So hearing this, Parikshit Maharaj was eager. What is his history of Vritrasura? So then Sukdev Goswami narrates from chapters 14 to 17 the history of Vritrasura as Maharaj Chitraketu. So this is the last chapter which is coming in. How Chitraketu ultimately gets cursed by Parasuti in order to take a demonic body. But yet, you know, his prema for the Lord is there. Now that's what Vishwanath Chandra Thakur makes a point that there was no offense on the part of either Jai Vijay or Chitraketu or Vritrasura, you can say. Why? Because if Chitraketu had committed an offense, then his prema would have diminished. But we see that his prema manifested more even in the body of Vritrasura. So that was not an offense. It was not a real offense, it was just an apparent thing. So that we will bring out because the context is the same. And in the end, because uh, Diti and Indra, Diti is upset because, uh, Indra is killed. So those two chapters are there, and that's how the sixth canto ends. So we see here in the previous verses how Chitraketu now, after the transformation uh, which happened because of the instructions of Narad and Angira, Chitraketu is a liberated personality, and in this liberated uh, condition, he's you know he's wandering with the inhabitants of Siddhalok and Charanlok, and he's enjoying life for millions of years in the upper planetary systems. Pure devotees have no desire to attain Swarga or Apavarga, nor even Vaikunta. But if they have a desire, Yadi Vanchati, Krishna fulfills that. Now, why would pure devotees desire to go to the upper planetary systems or in the Brahmanda or in the Vaikunta? They have a desire to preach there. So Chitraketu was, constantly glorifying the acts and deeds of the Lord, absorbed there. And he had darshan of Sankarshan, you can imagine. After having this darshan, he was, and then in his Viman once, He came in this assembly where Lord Shiva was seated and he was embracing Parvati. Seeing this in Chitraketu laughed. Now we'll also go into actually, what exactly constitutes offense. What exactly constitutes offense. Offense means to criticize. And we criticize, why? Because we see faults. We see faults. And there can be three kinds of faults which we can see in Vaishnavas. These are the only three kinds of faults we can see. The first is Purvutvanna. Hmm. Before that Vaishnava takes up to devotional service, his previous activities, you know, you see fault in them. Oh, this devotee, before taking up to Krishna consciousness, he was a drunkard, he was a smoker, you know, or Jaga and Madai had a previous history. So we see faults, Purt Utpanna, you know, and we criticize. When we see faults, we criticize. Then the second is Kashaya. Kashaya means, after taking to devotional service, still the, you know, Anat Nivritti is happening and there are faults, and he is getting purified by taking up to the practice of Krishna consciousness. But you find faults and criticize. This is second. And the third is Daivutpanna. Now this is very difficult. Even advanced devotees or Mahabhagavats can commit something which is not proper. And we cannot understand that. Like Parikshit Maharaj did an act of garlanding Shamik Rishi with a dead snake. You know. But there was some higher cause. The Lord had a plan. So these Daivutpanna are very difficult. And even advanced devotees can do something wrong. And not understanding that, we find faults and criticize. Now here, uh, Chitraketu is finding fault with the conduct of Shiva. That in the assembly of sages, you know, he is embracing his wife Parvati, you know, and that's why he says, what? Esha Loka Guru Sakshat. Lord Shiva is the spiritual master of the general populace, you know, Dharma Bhakta Shariranam. And he is the propagator of religion, speaker of religion for all living entities who have accepted material bodies. And then he is what? Aste Mukhya Sabhayam Vai Mituni Bhuya Bharaya. And he's sitting in this assembly of sages and he's, Mituni Bhuya, he's embracing his wife, just like a common man would do. And then, who is Shiva? Shiva is Jata Dharas Tivra Tapa. He is holding a Jatadhara, he is matted, he has got matted hair, and he has done great austerities and penances. And he is the Brahmavadi Sabhapati. He is the president of the assembly of the strict followers of Vedic principles. But nonetheless, he is seated with his wife on his lap, that too in the midst of saintly persons, and embracing her as if shameless, ordinary human being. Very heavy criticism. And then he says, ordinary conditioned souls, prayasha, prakritaschapi, ordinary conditioned souls generally embrace their wives and enjoy company in a solitary place. Ordinary. But see this Shiva, how wonderful it is that Mahadev, he is the great master of austerity. Actually, he is glorifying Mahadev. Mahavrata Dhara. Mahavrata Dhara is a brahmachari who has never fallen down. He is Mahavrata Dhara. And he is openly embracing his wife in the midst of great saints. Whereas common man would do in private. They will do in private. But Shiva is doing it in public. So this is the kind of criticism uh, Chitraketu does. And hearing this criticism, Shukdev Goswami is narrating to Parikshit Maharaj How did Shiva take this? Bhagavan api tat shrutva. Hearing this criticism, prahasya aghadadhi. He smiled. Lord Shiva smiled. Now, actually, um, the emotions which are happening in the heart of Shiva and in the assembly of sages, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary brings out. Hmm. Now, as I was mentioning, whether Chitraketu's offense was real or apparent, it was not real, it was apparent. His intention of criticizing Shiva was very pure. And Shiva, who is Aghadadhi, has, you know, fathomless intelligence, could understand. He could understand. And that is why Shiva smiled. Shiva smiled. There is no harm if Shiva does this kind of an act. There is no harm if Shiva does this kind of an act. But common man, when they see Shiva performing this act, common men will criticize a Mahabhagavat. And because of criticizing a Mahabhagavat, they will be destroyed. Just like Daksha was destroyed by criticizing Lord Shiva. So, in order to protect the common man, that is why Chitraketu, you know, with this intention, with this pure intention, criticized Shiva. And Shiva understood this. Yadyad Acharti Sheshas, as Prabhupada is quoting in the pulpit. Shiva understood this. And he remained silent, Tushni. Now, understanding the thoughts, what were happening in Shiva's mind, the sages also understood, you know, the sages also understood, seeing, you know, Shiva's actions, you know, his demeanor, the sages also understood Shiva's thoughts, and that is why they also followed Shiva, Tad Anuvrata. That means they also remained silent. Generally, when somebody commits offense of criticism, one Vaishnava commits, criticism of another Vaishnava, the other Vaishnava should remain tolerant and silent, even if it is a real, whatever it is. But the others Vaishnavas who are there, they should act like fire. They should act like fire. But generally, what happens? The one against whom the offense is committed, he acts like fire. But he should be humble and tolerant, you know. But the sages should have acted. But understanding Shiva's thoughts, they also remained silent. That's why Prabhupada says, otherwise the sages, if it was actually a blasphemy of Shiva, the sages would have immediately blocked their ears and they would have left the assembly. But they did not do that. Now to understand this, you know, Chitraketu's intention that it was not a real offense, it was apparent. I'm going to narrate the classic pastime, which is the most misunderstood pastime, is of Rupa Goswami. Now, Rupa Goswami was sitting in his bhajan kutir, and in his Leela Swaran, there are two different versions. Narahari Chakravarti in his book narrates a little different pastime, and other acharyas different. They narrate a different pastime what he was actually seeing. They say, but it doesn't matter. But let's go into the intricacies of this, and this has to be very clearly understood. So it is mentioned that Rupa Goswami in his Leela Smaran was actually meditating and seeing a pastime where Srimati Radharani and the gopis were picking up flowers for making garlands to Krishna, and Krishna was on the one of the branches, and because the flowers were at little height, Radharani could not, reach them. So Krishna just bent the branch. And Srimati Radharani caught hold of the branch and she was picking the flowers. Then immediately Krishna released it. Now, when Krishna released, Srimati Radharani suddenly got panicked and she held on to the branch and she was hanging. And she immediately, whatever one has love and shelter, she will call out that name. She called out Krishna, Krishna, you know. And all the gopis understood that Srimati Radharani is love for Krishna. So they all laughed, the gopis. And when the gopis laughed, you know, Krishna also jumped from the branch and he appeared there. Then everyone laughed. Now, at this point, when Rupa Goswami was in his Leela Sparan, there was one Vaishnava who was a little crippled, and he had heard the glories of Rupa Goswami. He was crippled means he could not walk. He had a crippled leg, but not exactly disabled. He had a crooked leg, and he walked. And he had heard the glories of Rupa Goswami. In fact, he was crooked also in his mentality, and he came to take darshan of Rupa Goswami. Who is this Rupa Goswami? All these Vaishnavas are speaking. In one sense, he is jealous also of Rupa Goswami. So he at this point just entered the bhajan kutir of Rupa Goswami. And as he entered, Rupa Goswami laughed. The moment Rupa Goswami laughed, this Vaishnava thought that he is laughing on me because I am like this. And immediately he felt hurt and he left the bhajan kutir and went back to his kutir. Now, immediately at this point, Rupa Goswami's Leela Sparan stopped. His Leela Sparan stopped. And it is said that his Leela Sparan stopped because he committed a offense. But that's not the reason. Srimati Radharani stopped the Leela Sparan of Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami, told to Sanatan Goswami that this is what morning meditation I was doing. And somehow it stopped. Now, Sanatan Goswami, being very learned, he told you, invite all the Vaishnavas for prasad. One of the Vaishnavas did not come. And Sanatan Goswami went to this Vaishnava, you know, and then he said, "Oh Goswami, you know, please give your darshan." And this Goswami was in his bhajan kutir. He did not come out. He said, "Oh, you are great saints. People speak about you. But when I came to take darshan, people laugh. You say you're not the body, of spirit, soul." So Sanatan Goswami could understand. And then, he humbly said, and by the time Rupa Goswami also came there, and then he told that I had come to take darshan, and Rupa Goswami laughed. Sanatan Goswami asked Rupa Goswami, "Did you laugh?" He said, "No, I am not aware also. I was in my Leela Sparan." So actually, who had committed an offense? This Vaishnava had misunderstood Rupa Goswami, and he found fault in Rupa Goswami. And because of finding fault in Rupa Goswami, he would commit a great aparad unto a Mahabhagavat. And because he should not commit this Maha Aparad by which he will be destroyed, Srimati Radharini for some time stopped the Leela Sparan of Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami, said, he took that, it is my mistake, please forgive me. And that transformed this Vaishnava. He said, both asked forgiveness. But actually, after this incident had happened, and this Vaishnava had gone back to his Bhajan Kutir, actually he was feeling the distress and he was feeling the suffering in his heart. So, who has committed an offense? How do we understand when an offense happens between Vaishnavas? We have to see whether who is suffering the offensive reactions. Sometimes because of ego, we want to stick on to our point that I was right. That is not the criteria. The criteria is who is suffering the sinful, offensive reactions. So this Vaishnava was burning in his heart and he is going through these reactions. And that's why Sanatan Goswami came, so that he can ask forgiveness to Rup Goswami and save from that Mahaprad. So, in this case, it was this Vaishnava who had committed offense to Rupa Goswami. He had misunderstood without, having the clear understanding what is what. And he had come with this mentality, you know, and that's why this became an incident for him to, oh, he laughed at me. Mm. So that is why here even Chitraketu laughed at Shiva and he spoke these words of criticism. And we see that Parvati could not tolerate it. Of course, there was a deeper purpose. The Lord wanted Vritasura, Chitraketu to come back quickly. And that's why, he enacted this. So that in his next body in Vritasura, he'll come back quickly to his abode. So that is why the Lord enacted. So the point what I wanted to make was that we have to see who has committed Vaishnava Aparadh and who is going through the reaction of that offense. Mm. And then one has to immediately rectify it. So, in the Madhurika Damni, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur, when it comes to Anarth Nivritti, there are Sukrut Uttanarthas, Dushkut Uttanarthas, Aparad Uttanarthas, and Bhakti Uttanarthas. The Shukrutirtha and Dushkrutirtha he doesn't discuss because just by chanting the holy name, na, all the pap and punya will be eradicated very quickly. Mm. But he discusses Bhakti Utta because Bhakti Utta the anarthas, because of practice of pure devotional service, you know, it the fringe benefits what come because of the practice of pure devotional service, they look like bhakti only because it grows with the pure bhakti lata along with it. So it's exactly similar. It cannot be distinguished also. But actually, it chokes the lata creeper. And it can choke to such a degree that bhakti can completely disappear, getting carried away by, so-called activities of bhakti, which we perform. So that's why he deals with, bhakti uttanartha in detail. But the aparad uttanarthas, he goes into a very in-depth analysis. And there are 10 offenses. Among them, he goes into the first 4 offenses. The first one is Vaishnava Ninda. And he goes into a lot detail of this Vaishnava Ninda, which we cannot discuss in this class. But basically, he says that when one commits these namaprads, these become great stumbling blocks. In fact, the potency of bhakti is that one name, holy name, can, you know, take you back to Godhead. Both Vishwanath Chakravarti and Jiva Goswami says that our philosophy is very simple. Nam Grahan Vaikuntha Gaman. You just take the name, go back to spiritual world. But because in that Nam there are aparas, and especially Vaishnava aparad. So Vishwanath Chakravarti quite elaborately analyzes, especially the first offense Vaishnava Ninda, and the second offense he analyzes. And Prabhupada brings out in his purport. Actually, if one, thinks that Vishnu is the only perfect personality and demigod like Shiva, are not, because there he goes into the ontology of Chaitanya. Chaitanya means Ishwar Tattva. Both Narayan and Shiva, if you see non-different, that's also an offense. Both are independent consciousness, he says there. One is beyond Maya, touch of Maya. One accepts Maya by his own will for the creation pastime. So there, if you see difference, then you commit an offense. So he goes into lot detail because in South India there is Kanchipuram, there's Vishnu Kanchi and Shiva Kanchi. We are worshippers of Vishnu. We don't, you know, look at the followers of Shiva. And the followers of Shiva, we are worshippers of Shiva. We don't look at Vishnu. So this is a very severe, severe offense. I had first time gone to take darshan, and I took Vishnu Kanchi darshan, and I went to Shiva Kanchi, and I having a darshan of you know Lord Shiva, and I was sitting and chanting, and the pujari said, "Hey, no taking name of Hare Krishna here. Here to take name of Shiva here." So he goes into a lot detail, and then the elimination of aparads. How it happens, Vishwanath Chakravarti goes there. There I want to discuss, very important. How the namaprads are nullified. He says that bhajan kriya, then the nullification happens only ekadeshavartini. Ekadeshavartini means, if you have a coconut tree, there are many branches. One branch is cut off. That's it. At the stage of bhajan kriya. And that too at the stage of end of bhajan kriya. Please remember that. And then at the stage of Nishta, it is Bahudeshavartini. Bahudeshavartini means the entire, all the branches in the coconut tree are cut, you know. And at the stage of Bhava, it is Praiki. So at the stage of Bhava, Praiki means, the coconut trunk is there, na? Now till the ground, the coconut trunk is also cut. You cannot see the trunk now, whole trunk. That much elimination of aparadhas happens at the stage of Bhava. At the stage of Prema, it is Purna, he says. Purna means complete. That means now, I mentioned, even the trunk is cut, but still there are roots, Coconut roots are very deep rooted. You know that, right? So you take out also the roots out, and it's very difficult to take it out. Sometimes you have to use a crane to lift it, so deep rooted there. So at the stage of Prema, it is Purna. But then he says, only at the stage of Siddhavastha. That means when you go back to the spiritual world, it is Atyantiki. It is complete. That means even at the stage of Prema, if one commits an offense, he will fall down. And he quotes from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, quotes this verse. Bhavyapya abhavamayati Krishna preshta aparadita abhasantacha shanakir nyuna jatayatamapi. If someone who has attained rati, bhavapi, commits an offense to a dear associate of Krishna, preshta aparadita, that means if somebody commits an offense to a very advanced devotee who is very, very dear to Krishna, hmm, what will happen? That rati is destroyed if the offense is heavy. If the offense is very heavy, the rati, the bhava or prema, what he has, that prema will be disappear. It will gone. It will be gone. And when the offense is medium, it's not so heavy. Then that bhava, what he has, it will become bhava bas or ratya bas. And if it is very slight offense, then in bhava, if he is in madhurya ras, he will come down to vatsalya or sakya. If he is in vatsalya ras, it might come down to sakya. And if he is in sakya ras, it will come down to dasya. So this is what he says. This is there in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Generally, with the anarth nivritti happening and one situated in Nishta, one is very careful not to commit offenses to Vaishnava because he is chanting Namabhas and he realizes the glory of the holy name and he realizes the glory of Vaishnavas. So he's very careful in his dealing with Vaishnavas not to commit Vaishnava Parad. And he honors, respects every Vaishnava. Generally, what to speak prema, nobody commits an offense. You know. But Rupa Goswami warns you that even at the stage of prema, if one commits a aparad, he can fall down. Even at the stage of prema. But Chitraketu had prema. Did he commit an offense to Shiva? How do we see that? Because even in the body of Vritrasura, he exhibited that prema. That means he had not committed a offense. So that's how he concludes. That's how he concludes that it is not real and it is apparent. It is apparent. So uh, I'll conclude with you know Bhrugu's statement that the holy name or all the ingredients connected with you know the Lord, the deities, or the Mahaprasad. The Mahaprasad is completely spiritual. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that just by eating Mahaprasad, I can conquer Prapancha Jaya, he says. But we take Mahaprasad and we become controlled by Mahaprasad and overeat. What to speak of controlling the tongue? You know, Prapancha Jaya doesn't happen. How is it possible that this so one grain of Mahaprasad can purify you and liberate you, just like that fish, took one grain of Ramacharya's Maha and it got a Vaikuntha body and went back to the spiritual world. That is the potency in the Mahaprasad, you know. So what is that, you know, which is all this spiritual and why it doesn't act? So the reason Bhrigu states in his statement, Kete aparad vipendra namno bhagavata krita vigninanti nranam krityam prakritam hi anayanti hi. O best of the Brahmanas, Viprendra, what are those aparadhs to the holy name? Kete aparadha namno bhagavata krita that destroy the fortune of the offender. Vignanti nranam krityam and give a conception of considering transcendental to be material. So, just like in Ayurveda, if you take a medicine which is highly potent, it should immediately, you know, cure you. But the disease, if it is deep rooted, the medicine potency will not act, although it is potent. I recently know a case of somebody who was in the ICU. Doctor said there is no chance he can survive. You know, and they called a one Vaidya in Kerala. He said, I have one last remedy which is a very powerful bhasma. One dose, if he survives, then he'll survive, otherwise no chance. And somehow the ICU in charge doctor was a known devotee because otherwise in the ICU you cannot give any other dose. They gave him and he revived and he got back his life. That is the material potency of a drug. Can you imagine the spiritual potency of the holy name? And we are taking this holy name, but still, because of the offenses, the potency of the holy name is not realized. And the real reason is because of offenses. So that is what is being brought out in this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Any questions, any clarifications you have? Yes, Prabhuji. Take the mic. Mm. Mm. Okay, basically, with the practice of bhajan, chanting of the holy names, these offenses, namaprads, their destruction happens, you know, in stages. In stages it happens. And I gave the example of a coconut tree. A coconut tree has many branches. Now our tree of material existence you can compare. It has to be cut, you know. So Ekadesha Vartani means basically what? One branch has fallen. That's it. At the end of Bhajan Kriya, so much only aparadha is destroyed. So basically, they give an estimation as to around 15% of the aparadhas are destroyed by chanting, attentively the holy names. You know, 15%. And Bahudesha Vartani means, around 50% at the stage of Nishtha. At the stage of Bhava, it is 95%. At the stage of Prema, it is 99%. And Atyantiki means 100%. Till you go back to Godhead, you have to be careful about committing offense, even when you are at the stage of Prema. So to point out that, he gives some idea. And he gives actually a logic. Just like, you set a fire to a village, you know. Now, the entire village burns. But still you take a simple example, you set a fire to a cottage, a cottage roof with, coconut tree or grass. Everything gets burned, right? But still inside if you go, there will be cloths, there will be other items which will be still not burnt, right? They are still there. So similarly, by the chanting, all these aparadhas will be burnt, but still there is degrees, not complete eradication. So at different stages in a bhakti, this, nullification happens. That's what he explains. I hope it is clear. The bhajan. Yes, yes. It's basically a simple thing, you have a high fever, very high fever, and you take the dose, a heavy dose is given, the fever gradually reduces, right? And then you regain your health, right? So similarly like that it is. So, different, today I'm feeling 10% better. After 3, 4 days, 50% better. And then after 4, 5 days, the effect of taking the dosage, you know, it will over a period of time, and following the diet. So similarly, the effect of doing the bhajan over a period of time, the degree of destruction of namaprads, this is how it happens. That's what has been mentioned. I hope it is clear. Any other question? Yes. Ram Priya Prabhu. Hmm. Because that Vaishnava, he will commit a Mahaparad and that will destroy him. To save him, Srimati Radharani stopped the Leela. Hmm. Yes, yes. Or the reduction in the prema. But Chitraketu had higher prema even in the body of Vritrasura. Yes, so it's not a real offense, it's apparent. That's how we can understand. It is basically, the kind of gravity of the offense. Like you want to kill a Vaishnava, harm a Vaishnava, or you're just jealous about a Vaishnava. You know? So based on that, Hanti Nindanti Dveshti, Vaishnavanam Na Binandanti, Vriddyoyati No Harsham, Patanani Shak. These are six kind of Vaishnava aparadha which can happen. Hanti means to kill a Vaishnava. Nindanti means to criticize a Vaishnava. And Dveshti means to envy a Vaishnava. Na abhinandanti, not to respect a Vaishnava. Krudate, become angry at a Vaishnava. And na harsham, not being pleased on seeing a Vaishnava. So these all are, causes of Vaishnava pride. So just to give an example, of the gravity, you know, you make a statement, I don't like that Vaishnava. You know, so dislike. But then the feeling of the, emotion is higher. I am jealous of that Vaishnava. That means when I'm jealous, I'm burning inside, seeing his glory. You know, why he is respected so much? Why his classes many devotees attend? Why not my classes? So I am what? Jealous. But envy means, you know, I am burning in the heart. I want to burn him. So I harm him. You know. So that time the gravity is deeper. The feeling is deeper, and the reaction will be also appropriate accordingly. Is it clear? Hold the mic. Yes. Yes. Yeah. We have to do the parihar. Basically, we have to, you know, we have to pacification of the, aparad. The method is given by Vishnu Chakravarti. Mm. Unless we don't do that, then you have to face the offensive reaction for the aparad. Basically, Vishnu Chakravarti mentions that when you burn the heart of a Vaishnava by your criticism, actually, you know, you have to first burn in the fire of repentance that I did this act. Without first burning in the fire of repentance, you go in and asking forgiveness. That forgiveness will not have much value. Just like Daksha also asked forgiveness to Shiva when he came back to consciousness after getting ghost body. And you're glorious. Please forgive me. And Shiva forgave him as a Vaishnava. But still he did not become free from the offensive reaction. And that's why in the sixth canto he commits offense to now Narada. So you have to first burn in the fire of repentance and then go and beg forgiveness to that Vaishnava in a way that you get his mercy, anugraha. You know, if he just forgives you, Shama, that will not happen. Only when he becomes anugraha, benevolent to you, then that benevolence will destroy the offensive reaction. Otherwise, it will not destroy. And you go and ask forgiveness and you serve that Vaishnava in such a way that he is pleased, and he shows his anugrah, then you become free. But he still doesn't get pleased because the offense was so severe, then you have to now really repent very deeply, leave everything, and take complete shelter of holy name. Then the holy name will destroy. But only first after committing offense, you just direct take shelter of holy name, that will increase the offense reaction. First, you have to first burn in the fire of repentance, paschatap, anutap, you know. And in Ayurveda, the principle is if you have burnt, fire has burnt your skin, then the ointment you apply now that burns, and that burn will, pacify the burn. So similarly, you have to burn in the fire of repentance first. You know? So if you think, after in spite of serving him and trying to please him, this Vaishnava is not pleased, what kind of a Vaishnava is he? Vaishnava means he should be very merciful. He doesn't have the qualities of the Vaishnava. If you think like that, then the offensive reaction will increase. And Vishnu Chakravarti goes into more detail. He says that this Vaishnava aparad doesn't only applicable to pure devotees. Even if a Vaishnava is Sudurachari, he is not having good qualities, but he has taken shelter of the holy name. Even an ordinary Vaishnava, you commit offense, you get the reaction. No, sometimes we have a misunderstanding when we read the first offense. Mahabhagavat is mentioned, pure devotee. No, it applies to everyone. Anyone who has taken the shelter of holy name is a Vaishnava. He's the topmost of the Vaishnavas compared to the people in general, right? So anyone you commit an offense, it will have this reaction. But the gravity will increase if it is for a Mahabhagat. Then the reaction is going to be very severe and immediately it will come. Is it clear? Yeah. Okay. You have a question? Yeah. Okay. You take first. That's the biggest problem. Yeah, this is a very, you can say, paradoxal situation for us. And always this is that familiarity breeds contempt. So that's why Prabhupada mentioned that if you know whom you're sitting next to, what is his Swarupa, then you would realize. So we don't know who is who. So we don't value that. And that's why we should repeatedly hear the glories of Vaishnavas, you know, have very nice mutual friendship with the Vaishnavas based on Vaishnava dealings and have genuine appreciation. And the only way what can save us of not committing this offense of Ati Parichaya Avagya is following Vaishnava Sadachar. In fact, for all the 10 offenses, the remedy Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the Harinam Chintamani mentions Vaishnava Achar. Although we know each other, we see each other first day in the morning when we see the Vaishnava, we should offer respects. Pranati, we should do that. By doing that, then we'll be very protected. We'll be careful not to take. Generally, what happens when we go to other centers, other places, when we see the Vaishnavas, we offer obeisances. But the Vaishnavas whom we are with every day, we don't do that. Yes or no? Yes or no? But that we need to do. That we need to do. If we do and follow Vaishnava Sadachar, then we'll be protected. That classic pastime. Prabhupada used to ring the bell and servant is to come and offer obeisances. You know, and few times he did not do. You know, every time coming and offering obeisance. Prabhupada, in order to correct him, he did that. And he told him, every time you come, you have to offer obeisance. You know, so like that. By following Vaishnava Sadachar, that's the only way. Yes, Prabhuji, we have one question. Last question. No, we'll take last. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, the you know the aparadhs which are there in the bhajan kriya. Bhajan means chanting the holy names. When you start doing bhajan kriya, attentive chanting, then the nam aparadh nullification starts. And to what degree it happens in different stages, that's what is being mentioned. Yes, it's only by attentive chanting. Yes, that's what I recommend sometimes, that if you're feeling a little sleepy, Go and take 15 minutes rest. But don't fall asleep while you're chanting. You're traveling in your car in a ghat and you feel sleepy. Will you continue your journey? Stop the car somewhere, you know, take a nap, 15 minutes, wash your face. When you feel fresh, you go. Right? Otherwise, what will happen? Accident. But more severe is this. Because after 84 lakh varieties of species wandering, you have come to the human form and the door is open now to go back to Godhead and you miss that door and you go ahead and you don't know when you will rotate and again come back and get this chance. Hmm? So that's why we have to be very careful, not to be inattentive while chanting because that will increase the nama prans then. Yes. Uh, Firstly, it is finding fault. You find fault with a Vaishnava, and there are three faults. I said, you know, there are three kinds of faults. One is Purvutpanna. Before he takes up taken to Krishna consciousness, you speak, oh, this person was so and so, and then Kashaya. He's, getting purified and he has this, conditioned nature, you know, and you see fault and you criticize or you accuse. And the third is Daivatvan. Daivatvan is a little difficult, I mentioned, you know. Uh, yeah. Mm, mm, mm. Finding. Mm, yeah. Basically, uh, the root is just finding fault. Fault finding is there, and it is a battle and struggles. You know, you might at some point feel in your practice, I don't see faults in others, but after a few years again the tendency comes back like the Ravana head. Once it is cut, again it came back like that. It comes back. So as long as anarth nivritti doesn't happen, when one comes to the state of nishtana, one doesn't see fault in others, only sees faults in himself because he becomes introspective and he sees in his heart all the sinful activities he has done before taking to Krishna consciousness. And Krishna might give a vision of his previous lives also. And then he says, Amara Jivan Sada Paperata Nahi Koi Punyara Lesh. So he cannot see fault in others, he only sees fault in himself because now he's become Antar Chakshu. He's become self realized. Till then, it is a battle for us. So we find faults, but how to work on it? We'll have to find the remedies, and so many pastimes are there. The Daksha Shiva pastime is there, you know. So there are different attitudes of seeing. There is good and bad, you know, in everyone. But our attitude will be that see the good and focus on the good. But some will what do? They'll see the bad and focus on the bad, although there is good. So these are because of the modes influence. This is a tamasic influence. This is a more sattvic influence. So we have to increase the mode of goodness and have that right vision and attitude to see things. Is it okay? Okay. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagvatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.